This is certainly one of the most comprehensive studies of attitudes and behavior on internet during election times. Obviously, since the Brexit referendum and the US elections in 2016, there has been an intense conversation on the role and influence of social media in an election context, whether in dealing with the so-called fake news or simply in analyzing the sources of information that lead citizens in their choices. The French presidential and legislative elections of 2017 were an obvious candidate for such a study, as its outcome was expected to have an influence on Europe's future. The purpose was not to reveal fake news, disinformation, or manipulations. Many journalists and non-journalists did that in real time during the campaign, probably helping limit their impact on the election process. It was to understand the wider implications of political conversation in the era of social media, of diminishing impact of traditional media, of growing polarization within our societies. The study reached several conclusions which should help us in future reflections. 1. The mapping of media sources shared during the election period show the extent of the big divide between traditional media, the new information ecosystem of the web, and a vast territory of news sources based on profound distrust and opposition to mainstream media. This reframe and alternative world represents close to 1/4 of shared links in the election period. This is a significant figure. 2. The absence of common ground reflected in these figures show the extent of the gap and polarization otherwise analyzed in vote results and territorial divide. It particularly appears in sharing behavior with the creation of what is known as echo chambers, reinforcing the separate world opposed to mainstream media. 3. The fake news phenomenon is part and parcel of the reframe and alternative worlds as it attempts to counter the mainstream narrative. A closer analysis of sharing behavior of obvious fake news show that it appeals to emotional needs and a will to oppose a counter-narrative to the dominant one. Attempts by mainstream media to counter it with fact-checking and debunking only impacts the already convinced, but not those who don't trust mainstream media anymore. It would be a big mistake to assume that a fake report is dead because it's been denied by traditional media fact-checkers. 4. Social platforms have an indisputable responsibility in the new circulation of news and should be more transparent and open in their practices. But they should not be left alone in dealing with fake news and disinformation. Making them the exclusive new gatekeepers of the information world would be both dangerous and illegitimate. 5. And last, this report should be food for thought for traditional media, who have to face a new world of both defiance and competition from other sources. Professional journalists have lost the monopoly on news due to technology and society changes, and there's no going back. If they want to keep a legitimate place in this new environment, they have to engage with their public, including the ones that have turned their back on them. It will be a hard and painful road. These findings and recommendations are a contribution to an ongoing debate on information in the era of social media. If we don't go through the process of understanding the new landscape, its traps and its flaws, as well as its bright sides, we may be open for a rough time for democratic processes that rely on a sound and transparent information world.